One Jewish soldier, that of Gilad Shalit. He's been held in captivity in Gaza for 5 years. RT's Paula Slier now has this from Tel Aviv.
At this stage, we don't have the intricate details of who's on the list of prisoners and what the deal involves, but certainly it does seem to suggest that there has been not that much movement on both sides in terms of the deal over the last few years, which is why many are saying it's the Israelis who have given in. And certainly the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, has a lot to gain from such a deal. He's facing immense political pressure, both internally and internationally. Hamas, for its side, is coming out the winners of this deal. Certainly there have been celebrations throughout last night, and they continue today, particularly in the Jabalia refugee camp in Gaza. Hamas's political bureau chief, Khalid Michel, has called this a national victory for the Palestinians. He has encouraged the welcoming back of Palestinian prisoners, expressing regret that not all Palestinian prisoners are being freed. Certainly the Gazas have been bearing the brunt of the siege that was imposed on them ever since Gilad Shalit was taken hostage some 5 years ago. There have been heavy restrictions on goods both coming in and out of Gaza. Among the prisoners who are to be released, a fair number will return to the Gaza Strip, and I think it's worth mentioning that we don't yet know who these prisoners are. We will have their names released within the next 48 hours, but it's worth remembering that at this moment there are more than 8,000 prisoners who are currently being held in Israeli jails. Among them are many women and children, some 300 children. Many of the prisoners are also there without having been tried. Now, there are some prisoners who are currently undergoing a hunger strike. They're protesting against the general conditions in the prisons. We've been hearing from human activists who say that particularly the political prisoners, they have basic rights like bathing that are being denied to them. There are some 1,027 prisoners who will be released. They will be released in various stages. The latest we're hearing is that the first batch will be released possibly as soon as next week, when we understand that Gilad Shalit could be taken to Egypt. Egypt, of course, brokered this deal, and the whole exchange will happen on Egyptian soil.
All right, let's get a perspective here from the Gaza Strip. We can now cross live to Dr. Ayman Shaheen, a professor at Al-Azhar University. Thank you for joining us today. So the deal's being claimed by Hamas as a victory. Is Gaza united in celebrating the outcome of the agreement? To some, it may seem a bit bizarre. One Israeli for 1,000 Palestinians.
Yeah, actually, first of all, any Palestinian prisoners will be released. Any single Palestinian prisoner out of this 10,000 Palestinian prisoners in the Israeli jails will be released. It is a Palestinian victory. It is something good for Palestinians. 1,000 Palestinian prisoners, actually, as mentioned in the deal, it is something very, very good for Palestinians. We should not forget that we have to keep in our mind that there are about 8,000 Palestinian prisoners still in the Israeli jails. Anyhow, this 1,000 Palestinian prisoners, it's a good sign, good thing that Hamas has done for Palestinians.
But as you say, that there are still 7 to 8 or even more thousand Palestinians in Israeli jails. But the fact that Hamas and Israeli officials have reached a deal in itself is fairly unique. I mean, do you think this could be the start of a change in relations leading to some kind of peace, or just perhaps further prisoner swaps?
I think it is pure a deal for a prisoner in return of 1,000 prisoners. It has no, I cannot see any political sign for such a deal or such a swap.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Is it at all interesting to you? 1,000 Palestinians, one Israeli, that of Gilad Shalit. Is it possible that Gilad Shalit is a very, very valuable soldier? Perhaps he knows an awful lot.
Actually, this is not the first time. I can remind you, in 1985, 2 Israeli soldiers were captured in Lebanon, and those were the 2 Israeli soldiers were released in return of more than 1,000 Palestinian prisoners. Yeah, it is not the first time, actually. It is like this with the Israelis. For Israelis, he's a soldier. They are so keen about that. And Palestinians, because we have thousands, the number of Palestinian prisoners in the Israeli jails, actually, they are in thousands. So I can say that it is a fair, it is not one in return of one. Yeah. We have thousands in the Israeli prisoners, and just Hamas has just one single Israeli.
As you have suggested already now, that in the past there have been at least 2 different occasions, now 3, including the release of Gilad Shalit. Is that you suggested that the capture of Israeli soldiers then prompts a swap of 1 Israeli for 1,000 Palestinians. Does that mean we could actually see more Israeli soldiers being captured in an attempt to have more Palestinians behind bars freed?
Actually, the main and the more reasonable solution for the Palestinian prisoners' case, it should be by peace, by negotiations. Actually, I will remind the people here that as a result of the signing of Oslo Agreement in 1993 till 2000, about 6,000 Palestinian prisoners, as a result of the peace period at that time, 6,000 Palestinian prisoners were released. It did not need capture of an Israeli soldier. As a result, as a fruit of the peace process at that time, 6,000 or more Palestinian prisoners were released from the Israeli jails. I am looking for peace process, productive peace process that will affect the cause of Palestinian prisoners. This cause is very painful for us, for Palestinians, because thousands of our men and women are in the Israeli jails since years, since decades. Some of them, they spent more than 30 years till now.
As you say, Dr. Shaheen, there are still many Palestinians behind Israeli bars here. If I may just jump in, we are running very, very low on time here. Israel has used the capture of Gilad Shalit as justification for its blockade of Gaza. Now, can we expect perhaps conditions on the Strip to improve following this?
Actually, as a result of the capture of Gilad Shalit, but the people of Gaza Strip, we here in Gaza, we actually paid a very heavy price since the capture of Gilad Shalit in 2006. We paid a very, very heavy price in Gaza for the people of Gaza. The blockade, the Israeli closure, the war against Gaza, Israeli invasion to many areas of Gaza from time to time. Thousands of Palestinians since 2006 till now were killed. Thousands were injured. Hundreds of houses were demolished. Actually, Palestinians of Gaza, they paid so heavy price for Gilad Shalit.
As we continue here, I mean, certainly there are some that will say this is showing in some way or another a warming in relations, if not at least a leveling in contacts between Israeli and Hamas officials to do this kind of prisoner swap. All the while, eyes are still watching the UN when it comes to the whole Palestinian bid for statehood. Dr. Ayman Shaheen, I'm afraid that's all we have time for. A professor at Al-Azhar University. Many thanks indeed.
You're most welcome.
Well, now the EU's latest plans to extend its bailout fund have been derailed by Slovakia. The tiny country voted against the new plan to rescue indebted European nations. Slovakia, which was the last to vote, did not support the move.